back. Continuing on with dismantling everything that's hanging off the chassis. I'm starting from the back, working my way forward. Well, kind of. Looking at things and doing them as I'm going. But I did finish doing this yesterday, the back cross member. Now, I'm not going to do all this in detail because the beauty about these vehicles, they're all nuts and bolts. So if you can't figure out how to undo nut and bolt, then perhaps you shouldn't be doing a project. But what I am concentrating on is the condition as I'm pulling things apart. Now, I pulled the back hitch section out and I noticed that there was a little bit of corrosion there, which I've since gave it a first coating of kill rust. Not the product, but just a rust converter. And but it was interesting because anything that's kind of sitting up against the chassis will be a potential candidate for rust. And that also then I thought, well, hold on a second, that is a number of things, including the mounts here. Now, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it looks okay. I'll just put the light on. But as I said, that's a potential candidate for places to rust. So, but anyway, taking the handles off, the electrical connection there, and did the same with the other side. Taken out the mud flap bracket there that goes there. So we're moving on. And then I got sidetracked and I decided to start looking at the front. And that's why I got my coffee here, because I can ponder on things while I'm doing it. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is remove the steering arm here, and I'm just using a ball joint remover to do that, to pop the ball joint out. And then I got to the front here and started doing the same. So I popped this out, you can see it's nice and loose. And then I thought I'll disconnect, or at least I'll start unscrewing these two bolts here which hold the relay, I think it's called a relay, in place. And these things are an absolute bastard to take out. I've looked it up and everyone complains about how they're absolutely stuck against the inside the frame, and you've got to use a jack or this or that, the other. In my case, it's loose as anything. So I certainly don't have that problem, but at the same time I'm kind of curious as to know why it's so loose. So the next steps would be for me to take the bottom arm out, and that would allow me to then start raising that. And of course I'm going to have to take the horn out of the way, etc, etc. Even the battery box might have to go out, but we'll see how we go. But yeah, I'm slowly working my way through. Okay, so everything's all loose. I've taken the bolt out from under here, the pinch bolt. So the splines look pretty good. It's a bonus. And again, it's got one of those recesses there where the bolt goes through, so even if the bolt works itself loose, it'll never drop out, which is obviously a safety design. Right, so now that we've got that, theoretically I could just lift that out. Right, so I've removed the horn out of the way just in case. I don't know if that's going to be sufficient. Maybe I'll have enough to move it. Let's give it a go. Yeah, so you would have to agree that that was probably the easiest removal of a steering relay. And there you have, that's the way it is. Looks pretty sound to me. What I've got to do is I've got to investigate why it was so loose in there. I mean, looks like the chassis housing is actually quite sound, quite good. So it seems like there's only 4 bolts there, so that should be relatively straightforward. Famous last words. So I'll take that out now. So there's the plate that I just removed from underneath. And unfortunately I suffered my first casualty. That bolt there snapped off, still inside the chassis. There she is there. So I had another bolt that was quite tight, and I thought I'm going to end up snapping that. So what I did was I used a bit of your favourite degreaser or whatever, and there's a drain hole here, right there. So what I did was I pumped a whole lot of degreaser in there, hoping I'll get to the top of the threads. I'm taking out the threads are exposed internally, but if it is, it worked, unless of course it was a fluke. So I can't quite tell until I turn the well, I can look underneath later on, but it doesn't really matter now. I've got to get the remainder of that thread out by drilling it out, etc, etc. But anyway, we've got that off. That was the main thing. And so bonus. So this entire, taking the entire relay out was actually quite, yeah, not too bad. And it's all very, very nice and healthy in here as well. Again, a pleasant surprise. Let's hope that I can continue with this luck as such. Okay, well, I think I'll leave it at that. Just another update for the dismantling the chassis and components. So things like the arm now, I've got to take the brakes out, shocks, basically everything. The wiring is fine, that's stuck to that's part of the bulkhead, so I'll just remove that. The bulkhead will also be, I'm also including these brackets and the other side as part of the bulkhead, so they'll get removed and treated as such. So yeah, making good progress. Oh, well, if you've got any suggestions or anything for me, I'm always happy to hear it. Always happy to receive your comments, and I'll try to respond to all of them where I can. But until next time, thanks very much for watching.